There's more to this antique camera than meets the eye because of who it belonged to. A very famous photography couple that revolutionized adventure photography in the 1920s. Let's delve into it. I'm Todd Macon. Welcome to Film Camera Obsession. Today, I'd really like to share this camera with you. It was part of the large collection I bought a little over a month ago. This camera is a Graflex Auto RB, and the RB stands for rotating back. I'm most excited about something I discovered about this camera just the other day. Let's close this because this is in the way of my face. The gentleman that sold it to me explained that he heard that many of the cameras came from the collection of Dorothea Lange. You've probably seen this image from her, Migrant Mother. It's one of the most iconic American photographs ever taken. It was taken during the Dust Bowl, during the Depression. She came across this woman and her children in California, took the photograph, and it really changed the way Americans saw the problem of migrant workers in this country. I got very excited when I heard that these cameras may have belonged to Dorothea Lange, and I looked it up, and sure enough, there was a photograph of her on her car the same day that she took Migrant Mother, and she was holding a Graflex camera. As I continued my research, I noticed a few things. First of all, her Graflex had the hood over the top, and this one has rails and a slider on the bottom. Hers didn't have that. She was shooting a Graflex Super D. This is a Graflex Auto. This obviously did not belong to Dorothea Lange. I was a little disappointed. Then as I was poking around it the other day, I noticed this. On the sliding bar that holds the lens board in place, it's been engraved to one Martin Johnson. And I've never really seen this kind of a fancy engraving on a vintage camera before. I've seen a lot of cameras that were marked or etched into, but not like this. This almost looks like it was done in the factory. So I looked up Martin Johnson, and I learned a few things. So Martin Johnson was from Kansas. At a very early age, he was able to go on a European tour. And he kind of caught the travel bug from that and found out in, I believe, gosh, this is around 1910, I think it was 1909, he found out that the author Jack London was about to go on a round-the-world trip on a boat that he called the Snark. Martin Johnson wrote a letter to Jack London. He was one of 5 people out of hundreds that got to go on the Snark. It was a doomed voyage, absolutely doomed. In fact, Martin Johnson was the only one that made it around the world. And while showing off his photographs in Kansas, he met Osa, whom he then married. And then Osa and Martin Johnson became this adventuring couple that went around the world to different places, but especially East Africa and the South Pacific Islands. There's a really lovely collection at the Safari Museum in Kansas, which is dedicated to Martin and Osa. I'll put a link down below. You should check it out. I'm going to reach out to them and see if I can use some of their photographs for this episode. They had befriended George Eastman, the owner of Kodak. Graflex at the time was a subsidiary of Kodak, and they convinced him to go on a safari with them. George Eastman gave Osa cameras because a rhinoceros had sat on her favorite camera at some point. Is this one of the cameras given to her? And Martin? I don't know. I hope so. But there's no doubt that this attribution here could be Martin Johnson and could make this camera one that traveled to Africa or Borneo. If you can tell by their photographs, they're a really cute couple. Osa Johnson looks just absolutely fantastic. She shared the responsibility of filmmaking and photographing with her husband, a unique couple. And in fact, they are the basis for the characters in the movie Up. I'd like to extend a thank you to Graflex.org. Gave them the serial number from this camera, then they have all the information and explained to me that this was made in 1924. The other thing that Graflex.org shared with me was a catalog from 1923 that included this camera. It was pretty interesting. The camera at the time cost $124. If I'm thinking about it, I'll put that in real-time dollars in text right here. The box itself is made out of straight grain mahogany, and this is Moroccan leather. Beautifully made camera. This lens, it's a rare lens. It's a Gortz from Berlin Dagor f6.8. It's a 300 millimeter lens and pretty rare. I haven't seen any other Graflexes with this lens on it, and there's very few of these lenses out there. How does this Graflex work? Use this lever to flip up the mirror, and then you look down this focal chimney, and you are getting a through the lens ability to focus, to frame, and to see your depth of field. The shutter is up against the focal plane near the film, kind of like a Leica does. And so there's a curtain that shields the film from light until you're ready to shoot. Now, a Leica, for instance, its curtain only has one slit in it, and you can control the speed. But this camera, what's really cool is that the focal plane curtain, the shutter, if you will, is combined with a tensioning system. And there are 5 slits in the curtain. So between different tensions and different slits in the curtain, you can go anywhere from 1/5 of a second in this camera to 1/1000th of a second, which is pretty impressive for 1924. Let's take a look at how it works. First thing you do, as I said, you pull back the mirror so you can focus. Then you determine your tension. I just set it to 3, goes up to 5. There's a small knob here that allows it to kind of go back. This dial here, you can choose the size of the opening of your shutter curtain, which affects the exposure. So I'm going to set it right now to 3/8. But once you determined your tension and the shutter setting or the curtain setting, you can go to this label that's on here. So for instance, if I've got it set at 2 at 3/8, I'm shooting at 135. So 135th of a second. Kind of just put myself more in awe of this. Neat. It's definitely got a cool steampunk feel. And then the shutter is right here. It's kind of ergonomic actually. It fits perfectly under your left thumb. And this is what you get. Boom. Photograph of zebras and charging elephants. Osa Johnson, by the way, had to shoot a charging elephant, sad story, but it was about to attack and kill her husband. I really can't wait. I'd like to get this out on the streets of my hometown and have tourists kind of just out of curiosity ask me what this is and take some street portraits. So that's it. 1924 Graflex rotating back auto camera that may have belonged to Martin and Osa Johnson. Awesome. Thanks, Martin and Osa. So if you're like me and you really enjoy these cameras, you enjoy film photography, you enjoy anything analog, please hit subscribe, come back, check out more of my videos. Thank you so much. Take care.